We had 3 women over the age of 45 have babies. So it was
Wow.
just like one of them was 55. That was with a surrogate
That's so
egg,
neat.
but she was able to carry because of acupuncture. And so she had her baby, and then we had two 45-year-olds conceived naturally.
Wow. Welcome to Her Fertility, the podcast revolutionizing the way women are supported on their fertility journey. I'm your host, Jess Tims. With years of supporting women as a fertility doula, I've seen the emotional pain caused by infertility, including my own struggle with unexplained infertility. And I always knew there had to be a better way to support women with their fertility health and healing. This is the first podcast to combine the principles of spirituality and energy healing with the research-based fertility data to support you in a way you've never seen before. If you're ready to find a new spiritual perspective for your fertility journey, then press play. We are here to reclaim control, find clarity, and transform the fertility conversation. Welcome back to the Her Fertility Podcast. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Beck Hoehn at a women's wellness event here in the Los Angeles area, and I knew immediately that I wanted to tap her expertise for you, the listeners of the Her Fertility Podcast. Dr. Beck Hoehn is a board-certified acupuncturist with a master's and doctorate degree, and she's a total expert when it comes to acupuncture, herbs, and fertility health. And she is massively successful here in the LA area, where she treats patients with Eastern medicine who are trying to get pregnant, who are using IVF, or who are dealing with different fertility issues. So I asked her if she would come on the Her Fertility Podcast to share her expertise and knowledge, and she graciously agreed. So listen through this entire episode if you're curious about how acupuncture and herbs can support your fertility health, or if you're navigating an infertility journey and you're considering using acupuncture. This episode is for you. Welcome, Dr. Hoehn. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. It's very rare that I walk into a room and see somebody and put my arm around them and say, "Oh, hi, we're going to be friends now." And
That's exactly what happened.
That's what happened with us. So I'm super excited. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I feel like for me, acupuncture is such a natural blend in the fertility conversation. And I had my own journey with acupuncture, but it does seem that there can be a lot of questions around it. So while I naturally gravitated towards you, I realized it might be helpful to share with the listeners like more of a deep dive on acupuncture. Can you tell us more about you and your practice?
I have a practice on the east side of Los Angeles. It's a brick and mortar called Mighty River Wellness. And I also support people in the online space as well with a series of courses that they can take. We specialize in a few things, mainly reproductive health, menopause, perimenopause, obviously the TCC space, trying to conceive space. And then additionally, autoimmune disorders, digestive health, and pain management. It's a culmination of several different interventions. So we use herbal medicine, we use acupuncture, we use Chinese medical massage called Tui Na, and then we also do a lot of testing and use functional medicine as well.
Fascinating. I could probably talk to you for years about this. It's
Yeah.
so interesting to me. And I just have a quick question. How did you land on the name Mighty River Wellness? I love it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the Mighty River is where I'm from. So I grew up on an island in upstate New York bordering Canada and used to walk across the ice to get to school with my family. It was pretty
Wow.
nuts. And I just really love the name because it really reflects the interdependency of nature and that balance of nature. And it's very akin to our logo, which is the Fibonacci sequence, where everything really relies on that interdivisibility.
I just got the full body chills. Everything is so on purpose. I love it. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
I started my business in Oregon. We were living in Bend, Oregon
Oh.
at the time. And I do feel like the connection to nature was so present there. We don't get that as much in LA, but it's still here. So, for someone who might not be familiar with the link between acupuncture's power and fertility health, do you mind giving us like a broad overview of how it's connected and how it supports a fertile body?
For those of you who are not aware, Teams, traditional Eastern Asian medicine, has been around for centuries. It's a standard form of medicine in other parts of the world. We started really accepting it in this country around the 1960s, but it's been, again, part of the medicine for centuries. And it relies on a couple of things. It's almost like an umbrella, right? And we have these different spokes or interventions of our medicine so that we can really create a whole systems medicine. So we have acupuncture, we have herbal medicine, we have Tui Na, and we have something called moxibustion, which is a warming therapy. So we kind of call from all of those different types of interventions. So again, we can create this better balance of people's lives. So it's all about optimizing life. It's not called sick care, it's more called well care. So it's maintaining that balance.
It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful approach to wellness for me. I feel like you hit the nail on the head. I've never heard it said that way, where it's a well care. Like the other thing I love is its connection to the whole self. It's not just, we're just going to look at your uterus. It's, we're going to look at the whole body and how that's connected. And I have a limited knowledge of Eastern medicine.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that the different parts of the body are viewed differently. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, with your work, also, you work in energetic fields, right? So when we think about the body's energetic field, we're thinking about the movement of chi throughout the body. Acupuncture really relies, and herbal medicine relies on the body. It's innate sense of healing. It's innate sense of wanting to heal itself constantly, right? So we're always trying to consider that balance. I almost think about it when we think about a meridian system, we're really thinking about like a freeway, right? So a freeway is an energetic pathway that goes through the body, comprised of several different of the systems that you can relate to in the West, right? So what we want to do is when we get to an exit, we want to make sure that that exit is constantly flowing. The cars are constantly moving. If there's a traffic jam, we want to move the needle in a specific manner so that we're unblocking that exit, so that all of the traffic, so to speak, or the chi can move through the body with a regular alacrity.
So beautiful.
You know,
And
so
so
sad to talk about traffic. I'm sorry.
that hits home a little bit.
It is home. Yeah,
That's funny. And so acupuncture does work on these meridians. Meridians are energy lines in the body.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Do they all stem from the spine?
There is one large, so there's the dew meridian. So when we think about we're going back to the basics of the I Ching. So we're thinking about when that first step in Tai Chi, from when you step from one solid part of your energy and then you step one foot out, that's like two becomes one, right? So we think about the sunny side and the shady side of balance when we're thinking about the yin yang pairs. So the spine is the dew meridian. So that's the back of the body and the seat of movement and command. And then the Ren meridian is what we think about when we think about a lot of fertility things, right? That's the yin side of the body. And so that's the range of action of the uterus, the middle jiao, the bao mai, so to speak.
So fascinating.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
a
fascinating.
lot of fun.
And so, how does acupuncture support fertility?
I would say acupuncture and herbs, we always want to think about them as the salt and pepper of our medicine. We have a ton of randomized clinical trials now that show us that acupuncture can regulate the nervous system. It can get better blood flow to the reproductive organs, right? So, and then also regulate that HPOA axis, that hypothalamus pituitary ovarian adrenal axis, right? So we always want to think about that relay system and support that relay system when we're trying to regulate hormones.
What immediately came into my mind was then how would the body be showing that there's stuck energy? My guess is through through some type of physical symptom is, and then somebody would come see you. Is that the path?
Yeah, you can see when somebody has, I mean, this gets down to a little bit of our, what we call our diagnostic pattern differentiation. So when somebody has like a great example is a painful period. right? So pain is considered an obstruction for us. So that just shows us that's one indicator. Then we would look at what their feelings of cold or heat are. And if they had breast tenderness before their periods, that would be a big thing. A huge other one is clots, is very telling for us. It's like a canary in a coal mine. So we take all of this along with the patient intake, called the asking song for us. We look at what are called the tongue and the pulse diagnosis and all of these other associated symptoms. And we put together a diagnosis based on these things. And then we treat with the acupuncture, the herbs, and the moxibustion, all of those kinds of elements together. So we customize our treatment plan based on the person that we see in front of us.
I totally forgot about the tongue reading and the pulse
Yeah.
reading until you just said that. And it feels like magic. So in my experience with I love acupuncture. I feel very like aligned with its power, but it feels like magic. Like when a practitioner can like look at your tongue and feel your pulse and be like, "Oh, you're experiencing all these things and this means all of these other things." I'm like, "How do you know that?" It's so cool.
Yeah, so like most of our, and this is really a great kind of thing to think about, is like most of our knowledge of the meridian system came from the battlefield in like 5 BCs ago or whatever. But we didn't start doing dissection in medicine until the 17th century. So every way that we kind of had those diagnostic tools were really through seeing somebody dead on the battlefield and also checking their tongue and their pulse. And now it's like the speedometer on a car, right? It's not like I'm going to stare at the speedometer while I'm driving down the freeway, but it does give me a couple of indicators that I need to create more decision making.
That's so fascinating. And I love too
Yeah.
that the body is telling us, right? The body is
Yeah.
telling us what's going on. And this is a beautiful language to understand that.
For sure. And I would just say also that like you become a really good motivational listener, I think, when you become an acupuncture provider, because a person will come in and they innately know what to do. They just need you to just kind of guide them just ever so slightly. And it's incredible the transformation that they can do with this medicine to them, just themselves, right? So you
Mhm.
really are almost like, I call myself the parsley on the plate next to the lemon wedge. Like I'm just a garnish for whatever you're going to do with your life. Like, and I love it right now in our practice. We have people on baby 2 and 3, and we've become this really keystone part of their lives.
Mhm.
But like baby 2, they already know what to do. They're like, okay, cool, we'll do this stuff that Dr. Hoehn said. And then those babies come out so much faster.
Isn't it neat? So I've worked with women too on their second and third baby. And
Yeah.
isn't it neat like having that connection? It's like a different connection with someone once you've worked with them that long.
I love it. I think it's great. It's so amazing because you do like once as somebody said this to me once and I loved it. It was like you become a family practice,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's so true. Like because the medicine can stand on its own in so many different ranges. I mean, we're here to talk about fertility, but you start working with somebody on digestive health and topical issues like skin issues and stress and PTSD and like all of these other things that the medicine has such a wide latitude of really capturing, that people don't even consider.
It's so fascinating. So you mentioned a few success stories. Are there any favorite stories that you have about how acupuncture really impacted a client?
So last year we had 3 women over the age of 45 have babies. So it was
Wow.
just like one of them was 55. That was with a surrogate
That's so
egg,
neat.
but she was able to carry because of acupuncture.
Wow.
And so she had her baby, and then we had two 45-year-olds conceived naturally.
Wow.
And they had gone through multiple rounds of retrieval. And then we're like, okay, we're going to give it a break, try naturally. They didn't have any viable embryos. And they really pushed away from that whole like stress of time. I know that you see this all the time in your
Yeah.
practice, but people are like, I need to like have a baby or get my eggs out now. And I honor that and I don't want to marginalize that. But these women were different. They were like, okay, I'm going to give myself 6 months and see what happens. And that is like the perfect amount of time to like really work with your provider and get that compounded effect of all the nutritional boot camp that you're going to go through and the supplementation and the meditation and
Mhm.
all of that things, it takes about 6 months to really see that move the needle.
Yes, and it is all connected. I feel like we so easily in our Western culture really silo everything, like your body, do this for your body, do this for your nutrition, and then meditation sometimes falls in, but it's all so connected and it all has an impact.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
And we see like all the time, like one thing that we do is that we use the herbs along in conjunction with the acupuncture to really get that compounded effect in between treatments. And this is the same thing that you would do with your meditation, right?
Mhm.
So it's like people are doing all of these kinds of small, tiny little shifts in their own life paradigm that really can make a difference.
Yeah, and I will say, like, just I know myself, and I would have thought, like, great, I can do some of this on my own. I was a very much a DIYer. Like, I always was like, I'm going to research it till the death. But it is so much easier when you go to a trusted provider like you, Dr. Hoehn, who has this obvious wealth of expertise and knowledge, can look at you and say, this is exactly what you need. This is your plan. And then it takes all of that stress, all of that research off of you, and you can just do it and reap the benefits and in the trusted bubble. And I think that leads me to my next question of like, why this is so important to work with someone who specializes in fertility because not all acupuncturists
Oh, yeah.
do. Can you talk about the importance of why somebody should seek out fertility specific acupuncture?
Oh my God. I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, I'm ABORM certified, which means that I have an extra layer of an exam and a certification that took a little bit extra time. You want somebody that speaks that language and can speak that medicine, and that's the only thing that they do, right? Like,
Mhm.
so it's just like you know the milestones where a person is going to transform and you're ready to meet them with their next challenge, right? So fertility is a huge collaborative project. And so you want somebody that really can understand, okay, what is this diagnostic pattern and how do I make adjustments if this intervention happens? And that becomes their second nature, so to speak. I will say another thing is that you really want, if you are going to have an acupuncturist on your team, you want them to be ABORM certified so that they know the local landscape, right? So
Yeah.
we're contracted with a lot of reproductive endocrinologists in the LA area, and we're able to understand that process. So we're able to fine tune the point selection based on where you are in your retrieval process or your IVF process, or if you're in the trying to conceive naturally space. I have relationships with tons of different companies and diagnostic testing and those a personal relationship with those labs. And you want somebody that is indoctrinated into that culture so that they know where to get you the answers that you need.
It's so
Yeah.
refreshing. I have to share. So, on my own journey, it took me over 2 years to get pregnant, and I did everything naturally that I could on my own. And I went and did acupuncture at some place that was covered by my insurance. They did not specialize in fertility, but it said like fertility on the sign. So I was like, great. And I loved it. I felt good. I didn't notice any big changes, but there was none of this specific, like, where are you in your cycle questions, anything like that. It was two male practitioners also. And
Yeah.
I will never forget, I was around ovulation and I had a treatment. And the next day, my period started. And I was so mad. I was like, that is the opposite of what we are trying to do. It was one of the most frustrating days of my fertility journey. And I'm like, I get that this works, but this is not the way I wanted it to work. It was a really hard lesson to learn. But if I can save anybody the time, effort, and frustration to find a fertility specific board certified
Yeah.
acupuncturist, do that.
Do that and then also give it more than one treatment. I mean, it's just like you that person has to get into your life a little bit, right? I
Mhm.
would say find somebody that you can communicate with, like and wants to be in a collaboration, right? We have a 15-minute consult at our office, which is lovely. Like we take in so much history and so much intake in that 15 minutes with somebody. And it just like they're able to interview us, find out which provider they like, if they want to stay in our culture and our like workflow. It's really nice to just interview somebody beforehand.
I have to say, one area I have zero knowledge about, but I deeply respect is the herbs. I don't know anything about herbs. And I have a couple questions. Is the impact of the herbal medicine limited by somebody's diet or lifestyle? Like, can somebody just take herbs and their effect goes in, or do they also have to change like their diet and everything else?
Oh, yeah, I would say that the herbs are a massively powerful part of the medicine. And sometimes when you live in a far-flung region where you don't have access to an acupuncturist all the time, and the question of acupuncture dose comes up, one way that you can support yourself more powerfully is through an herbal. So that can really move the needle on your fertility in between treatments. So, for example, if we are I generally see somebody at a cadence of once a week for around 3 to 6 months if they're in natural conception. And then if they're in an IVF framework, after that baseline, we see them twice a week leading up to their retrieval or their transfer. And that's just because of the RCTs that show us that that is the most effective, right? For the herbal medicine, it's a little different. Like if you are working in TCC for the natural conception and you can only see somebody during your ovulation and the end of your cycle, then in between you have this really great choice of doing some herbs, and that will really help with that. So the herbs really work synergistically together. The herbal formula is comprised of a couple of things. It's comprised of several different types of constituents that all work synergistically together.
I didn't do my research 1,000 years ago when I was going through my journey. And herbs truly were very intimidating.
Yeah. I would say also figure out what their diagnostic toolbox looks like too. I use the UVA kit, which measures urine metabolites for fertility or perimenopause. And then I'll see a graphic representation of somebody's cycle based on what their urine metabolites look like. And then from that graphic representation, I'm able to make adjustments in real time, right? I see that clinical dashboard. Some people use a basal body temperature chart and they can see that and see that graphic representation and say, oh, okay, this is a sawtooth profile, which in the follicular phase, the pattern's going up and down, up and down, up and down. Well, that means like liver qi stagnation for our pattern differentiation, so we can really work on soothing the liver and relaxing the nervous system during the follicular phase or estrogenic phase.
I see. Okay. So you're
Yeah.
constantly getting data and then you're constantly
Yeah.
adjusting. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, totally.
And even just listening to you, it's reminding me of how this framework, like this lens, right? This type of medicine has, to me, such a more beautiful rainbow of resources and ways to view fertility than does our Western medicine. I think together they work so beautifully because you can, look at from a Western perspective, we have our like the uterus, the hormones, but then you mentioned like damp in the body and the liver, right? Things that directly impact your fertility health, but we're not talking about on the Western side. And so it's such a beautiful combination. I guess a question for you is, do you always work in conjunction with Western medicine practices, or can they live separately? How do you see complementing each other? Would be
Yeah, so it's like it's a complement for sure, and it's an integrative medicine, right? Being able to move through both worlds with a little bit more ease is so important. So being able to communicate like the notion of dampness or stasis or the chi is stagnant. So like what does that mean to a reproductive endocrinologist? What does that mean to a naturopath? Like what so learning this kind of Eastern philosophy of like, okay, why that dampness aggregated in that area and is creating dampness. So how do we regulate the chi so that we can move that dampness and expel that dampness? What does that mean, right? So thinking about like a pattern that's very common in fertility is liver overacting on spleen. So that shows us, and I talked about that sawtooth profile, is like that shows us that the stress response is so upregulated that the person's digestive health is taking a back seat, right? The liver is overacting on the spleen stomach system. So how do we regulate the nervous system so that we can get smooth flowing chi and regular digestive function to the tract?
I love this so much because it's just so interesting. So the work that I do with energy, I go in and then I can see or feel or know that the energy of the sacral per se, that's where we mostly work,
Right? Yeah,
is
sure.
impacted. And that typically draws out to usually relationships is where we go. So it's usually a relationship with yourself, relationship with others. There's typically like a mother line there that we go through, and we're really talking about the emotions around that, excavating out any blocked energy. And yet, acupuncture it does a very similar thing, but in the body, like actually working in the physical body. And it's so beautiful. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool, actually. I love that we're both energy people because, you can feel it, right? Like if you're talking about somebody's lower dantian, like the area right below the umbilicus, or like even in the sacrum, you can feel on your fingertips the blockage, right? Like I'm sure you do. And it's the same with an acupuncturist. When we are finding that point, we're looking at that excess or deficiency, or sometimes even in the lower dantian, that area where the ovaries are, we can feel that cold,
Yeah.
right? And so that creates part of our diagnostic picture. And so you can show the body what it needs in that moment. And we use needles to move the chi and tune the chi around the body.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you find that people get scared of the needles?
All the time.
Is there any
1000%.
way to make it better?
Teams is all about connection, right? It's connection with your patient. It's creating and cultivating that level of trust and intimacy. And you start off when somebody's afraid of the needles, you start like you'll feel a point that doesn't have a lot of tenderness when the needle goes in, and you'll massage it a little bit first. And then you tell the person what you're doing. Okay, we're going to put this needle in, breathe in, and then put the needle in and exhale. Generally speaking, it's just a slight pinch and then it goes away as the body's aligned. Now, people have different experiences around their energetic field, as you know, right? So sometimes on the liver meridian, especially the ones on the top of the feet, you'll feel like a scratchy, itching, burning, right? That point was in excess. We needed to spread that chi out. It was aggregating in one spot. Or like some of the points will feel like a dullness to them. But all of these are experiences as your body starts to balance. Like lean into them, feel them, and notice them. That's what the work is for the patient, right? As they're making this baby.
Right. That's such a beautiful way to say it. This
Yeah.
journey definitely gives you that as a gift.
Yeah. And enjoy the ride, man. It's like, you're never going to have this moment again in time where you're trying to conceive and you've gone through this challenge, right? And you've done this is probably relative, like one of the most difficult, hardest challenges in your life, right? Emotionally, like to feel every day like everyone's getting pregnant around you and like you are just getting your period while everyone's getting pregnant. That is terrifying, right? Like we're supposed to just get pregnant, get off the pill and get pregnant. But like work with it. Like I would suggest like find someone that can support you, but really lean into that moment of time.
I have full body chills again. I'm so glad you said that, Dr. Hoehn.
Yeah,
It is
right?
such a beautiful framework and is exactly what
Yeah.
I feel like you and I are both doing. And while people are leaning into it, holding them and holding that space for them, it is so the opposite of what like the Western culture expects us to do, where that's like shut it behind the door, ignore it, I'm fine. Like this whole masculine way to attack infertility rather than what you're saying, which is like really lean into it and like explore, go there, be open to these types of support systems, and see what comes out of it. Because I do see that too, where what comes out of it is so much more beautiful on the other side.
Yeah, I love that so much. And we have like so many lovely sentiments around that. Like all the time, we have patients that have PCOS. Particularly, it's very strange. And like people are like, you're not going to get pregnant. So you should go right into an IVF framework. And I swear, I get chills from this woman all the time. She's like, one of my favorite people now. She's on baby number 3 with us. And she said, Dr. Hoehn told me I could do it, and I did. And I was like, hell yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. It's
that's right.
like people are like, women are just amazing beings and they can do so much. And just with a little bit of support, you're going to get across the finish line.
100%. That is so
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you for saying
Love it.
that. And
It's
thank you
true.
for being here and sharing all of your wealth of knowledge. Before we wrap it up, is there anything else you would like to share?
Just remember that anyone that wants to have a baby deserves that chance. And also, our last thing is that during National Infertility Awareness Week, we are launching the Make a Baby Bundle, which is 2 courses together. You can listen to them in the car or while you're doing the dishes. It's on optimizing that ovarian function and your partner's sperm health. So take a look. We'll send you the link.
We'll put it in the show notes. You
Love
can
it.
check it out. And what a beautiful way, because I do feel that if you're not in the LA area, then you can still have access to Dr. Hoehn's brilliance through this course. And if you are in the LA area, you can have access to her for acupuncture as well.
Yeah.
Where can
Check
people
us out.
find you?
Mighty
Yeah.
River Wellness, man.
And we'll put those below. Dr. Hoehn, thank you so much for your time today, sharing just your beautiful language of acupuncture. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and I hope to have you back sometime soon.
Likewise, I would be honored to share with your community. And I love talking to another energy person. It's really lovely. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Her Fertility Podcast. In a sea of big name podcasts, your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed the show, I would so appreciate your support by leaving a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, wherever you listen, to help me reach as many women as possible. You can also share this episode with a friend. Sharing the podcast is the best way to help it grow and build a community of support around you on your fertility journey. If we aren't already connected, please find me at Fertility Jess on social media or sign up for one of my next fertility courses or offerings at fertilityjess.com.